Russian hybrid attacks targeting critical undersea infrastructure, particularly fiber optic cables. Now, these attacks have surged in the Baltic
Arctic Circle. Details now from CNN's Nick Payton-Walsh.
Up here in the Arctic, you wouldn't get the feeling.
Arrived in 1946 with a heavily armed U.S. Navy fleet. Their mission was to extend American sovereignty over Antarctica. The mission was supposed to take 6 months.
About these attacks that are actually happening right now in the Baltic. Russia and China are attacking these undersea cables. We are aware of the Chinese.
Whole internet is supposed to go kaput. Okay. Now, to mitigate against this risk, both Russia initially and China, they've carried out multiple exercises.
Predicting trends gets the headlines, but keeping the global subsea network stable under extreme polar ice is the real battle. The sheer vastness of the global subsea networks, spanning nearly 15 million kilometers of exposed cable on the ocean floor, presents an unprecedented security challenge. These deep-sea trunks form the invisible foundation of global communication, completely isolated and highly vulnerable.
Also makes them extremely vulnerable. There's been an uptick of disruptions to power and telecom cables, as well as undersea gas pipelines in recent years. Intelligence agencies say that while many of those outages appear accidental, some can be attributed to sabotage by state-sponsored actors. Russia and China have been singled out as potential perpetrators in the seas bordering northern Europe and Taiwan, respectively.
Adversaries leverage plausible deniability on the northern European shelf, turning routine maritime operations into covert reconnaissance missions. Maritime intelligence reports have highlighted a dangerous shift toward coordinated, gray zone operations targeting critical communications in the Arctic Circle. Russian specialized naval units are systematically mapping high-capacity fiber routes to identify strategic choke points.
To undersea cables. It mentions Russian hybrid attacks targeting critical undersea infrastructure, particularly fiber optic cables. Now, these attacks have surged in the Baltic and Arctic since 2021. And these disruptions threaten essential communication channels and expose the vulnerabilities of Northern Europe's infrastructure.
A coordinated severing of these lines would instantly blind Northern Europe, proving this is an active campaign of preparation, not a hypothetical risk. Recognizing the imminent threat to shared infrastructure, Western powers have realized that individual monitoring of the deep ocean is no longer sufficient. This realization forged a vital strategic alliance aimed at maintaining a continuous, unified watch over the North Sea.
This agreement really reflects the fact that we have seen a significant uptick, as you say, of Russian naval activity over the past few years. And it also really illustrates the fact that the Atlantic Arctic, the North Sea, and the waters off of the Nordic region have started to become much more contested in terms of the security situation. So this really is a pact which reflects the fact that maritime security is becoming important to many countries in Northern Europe.
Joint patrols between the United Kingdom and Norway create a direct countermeasure against hostile submarines loitering near vital transatlantic trunks. Surface fleets alone cannot protect millions of kilometers of deep-sea cables, forcing the defense sector to engineer advanced underwater monitoring grids. These networks employ automated arrays designed to intercept threats long before they reach their targets.
What we are experiencing is that not only this is the era of shipbuilding, but this is also the era of underwater. So there are a lot of underestimated threats for the critical infrastructure. So Fincantieri is putting together an unconventional offering, so made of drones, unmanned drones, acoustic barriers, command and control systems, so a set of solutions that can be, let me say, a new way to take.
Integrating acoustic barriers with automated drones establishes a real-time defense shield capable of detecting the quietest submersibles. The underwater standoff is constant, with Western intelligence continually tracking adversarial spy ships loitering around critical digital corridors. These specialized vessels carry equipment specifically designed for deep-sea cable manipulation and interception.
To damage them will not be tolerated and will have serious consequences.
Do you think that Britain took the same attitude when Iran fired drone missiles at our air bases in Cyprus?
Continuous shadowing sends a clear signal that every hostile deployment is being recorded by our integrated defense network. Satellite reconnaissance has confirmed a massive infrastructure expansion along the northern Russian coastline, resurrecting defunct Cold War naval facilities. These heavily fortified installations are uniquely equipped to support specialized deep-sea sabotage operations.
In particular, building new bases in the Arctic Circle. Details now from CNN's Nick Payton-Walsh.
Up here in the Arctic, you wouldn't get the feeling Russia's military is crippled by its catastrophic invasion of Ukraine. To Moscow, this ice, quickly receding with climate change, is vital.
These modernized bases give adversarial fleets the logistical support needed to maintain a persistent, threatening presence along Arctic data pathways. As receding ice reveals accessible subsea passages, the high north has evolved into a highly contested geopolitical front line. Control over these northern maritime corridors represents a critical strategic advantage for regional security.
A competitive frontier in the great power competition. As climate change opens new maritime routes and economic opportunities in the Arctic, Russia has been the first mover to establish a dominant military position in the region. They've deployed advanced air defenses, improved submarines, interceptor aircraft, and offensive tactical weapons.
Solidifying Nordic cooperation forms a vital democratic bulwark, ensuring comprehensive surveillance over vulnerable northern energy and data pipelines. Countering stealth threats in the freezing waters of the high north demands highly specialized, state-of-the-art naval engineering. The deployment of next-generation fast attack submarines is crucial for maintaining a credible subsea deterrent.
If you need any evidence of how important upgrading the U.S. Navy is, look no further than when in August 2023, Russia and China sent a dozen naval ships off the Alaskan coast near the Aleutian Islands. This prompted the U.S. Navy to respond with 4 U.S. destroyers and likely a stealthy submarine nearby to chase them away. This was the largest flotilla of adversarial ships to come close to American shores.
These advanced attack vessels provide a silent, lethal presence capable of intercepting adversaries at critical underwater choke points. The technological foundation of our modern subsea defense grid actually evolved from scientific, deep ocean sensor arrays originally built for oceanography. These early civilian systems proved that continuous, real-time data transmission from the seafloor was entirely possible.
Need is a sea telescope, something that's on all the time, generating data all the time, and something that we can monitor all the time. So fortunately, in the late 90s, some senior scientists in Washington State and here in British Columbia started to conceive of this idea. They realized that there were some problems with our traditional sampling. And they sort of mapped out this notion that, well, perhaps we could take some instruments and we could put them in different environments on the
direct integration of telemetry sensors into active fiber optic cables transform passive infrastructure into an intelligent early warning system. Deploying standalone military sensors,
your interlocutors,
providing high-speed connectivity to isolated northern outposts serves a dual purpose, establishing the physical architecture for total maritime awareness. The surge in Gray's own maritime aggression has forced NATO to overhaul its defensive doctrine, drafting comprehensive collective strategies for the first time since the Cold War. At the top of the alliance's agenda is the absolute protection of critical undersea infrastructure.
Ukraine include agreement on protecting vital undersea cables and pipelines.
Several NATO members have also pledged more military assistance for Ukraine. But differences remain over increasing overall defense spending and expanding the alliance.
More troops on high alert, better logistics, new capabilities. For the first time since the Cold
Safeguarding this interconnected grid demands that all member nations significantly boost defense budgets and integrate their subsea sonar assets. Parallel security concerns are prompting allies in both the Indo-Pacific and the High North to re-engineer their naval capabilities. Modernizing subsea deterrence assets is now recognized as the only effective way to counter massive adversarial naval buildups.
The why. Why we are spending $368 billion on these submarines.
And you do have to lay that out, Laura, as a government. As you say, this is a huge expenditure over the next 3 decades, and the Australian people deserve to know why. Why does this need to be a priority for the government? He laid that out in some detail.
Without sustained financial investment in specialized deep-sea fleets, coastal nations remain highly vulnerable to coercive maritime blackmail. Navigating and fighting in the punishing environment of the polar circles is a challenge that historic navies understood intimately. Decades ago, massive, heavily armored surface task forces were deployed to Project Raw Power across the frozen north.
High jump commenced in August 1946. The official purpose of the mission was to train personnel and test equipment in cold temperatures, to explore Arctic geology, study the weather, and develop techniques for establishing air bases in frigid climates. Admiral Byrd led a Navy task force of almost 5,000 men aboard 13 ships, including a brand new state-of-the-art aircraft carrier loaded with dozens of planes, bombers, and helicopters.
These dangerous historical operations provided the foundational tactics used today to maintain an active defense grid under solid pack ice. The reality of underwater warfare means that encounters with highly advanced, unidentified submersibles are shrouded in total secrecy. When specialized crews detect anomalous signatures, the resulting data is immediately locked away under the tightest security protocols.
Operation High Jump arrived in 1946 with a heavily armed U.S. Navy fleet. Their mission was to extend American sovereignty over Antarctica. The mission was supposed to take 6 months. Instead, it lasted 6 weeks. The operation ended because of poor weather. At least that's the official report. Eyewitnesses said aggressive flying, disc-shaped craft chased the Navy out of the area. In 1985, a medevac flight was
Keeping these encounters completely classified prevents adversaries from mapping the blind spots or true capabilities of our subsea defense grid. Western intelligence agencies have successfully pinpointed specific, state-sanctioned naval units responsible for recent targeted cable disruptions in the Baltic and North Seas. These aggressive operations are far from random acts of vandalism.
The past years is actually a relatively steady number of cable cuts. Every week, there might be on average 4 or 5 cable cuts. They go unnoticed because they are attributed to human or industrial activities which are totally legit. Only a very minor number of them are suspected to be linked to sabotage events.
That is, though, what of course makes the headlines,
These
isn't
make
it?
the headlines.
These calculated cuts serve as direct tests of Western reaction times, revealing exactly where adversarial spy fleets are focusing their effort. The rapid evolution of fully digitized national economies has inadvertently created a massive strategic vulnerability. Because entire financial systems rely on these thin lines, hostile survey vessels are constantly charting our primary landing stations.
A very elaborate report prepared by the Jamestown Foundation about these attacks that are actually happening right now in the Baltic. Russia and China are attacking these undersea cables. We are aware of the Chinese vessels, their survey vessels are very active in the Indian Ocean region around the spots where we have cables and
a coordinated disruption of these main trunks would trigger instant economic paralysis, making the defense grid our most critical national security asset. The integrity of our subsea defense architecture relies entirely on seamless, multilateral maritime operations. Allies must maintain an unbroken chain of tracking assets to monitor suspicious commercial and military vessels hovering above our data lines.
The joint development of patrol vessels designed to look out for Russian submarines, to look out for Russian drones, but it also requires a great deal of cooperation in, for example, training. UK forces will get increased cold weather training with its agreement with Norway. There'll be greater information sharing and there'll be greater coordination between the two in order to really understand how the Arctic is becoming contested, how the Arctic is becoming much more militarized.
Deep, integrated intelligence sharing among NATO allies removes the blind spots that Gray's own actors exploit to damage critical undersea links. The volatile waters bordering northern Europe have effectively become a real-world laboratory for testing experimental acoustic defenses and cable monitoring networks. These cutting-edge systems are designed to detect microscopic shifts on the ocean floor.
On undersea cables that we have seen across Europe is really a new frontier for warfare. Do you consider then Fincantieri to be at the forefront, at the cutting edge of that level of defense?
Let me say Europe and the Mediterranean Sea in particular is being a gigantic lab for new solutions for the underwater. I don't know if you know that the Mediterranean Sea is
deploying advanced, localized acoustic barriers allows for the absolute protection of vital telecommunication links, even in highly congested shipping channels. Intelligence analysts warn that allowing foreign surveillance vessels to chart our subsea infrastructure without confrontation only invites bolder aggression. A passive response signals weakness, encouraging adversaries to expand their hybrid warfare campaigns.
Defense Secretary, what are those serious consequences? You've allowed the Russians to explore, map, maybe even interrogate our underwater cables for a whole month and done absolutely nothing except watch and say, we see you. What are these serious consequences? At what point there was a frigate, a Russian frigate went through the channel yesterday with a shadow tanker where the Prime Minister said that we're going to take action to...
The secret subsea grid is engineered to flag these long-term mapping patterns early, identifying hostile intent before actual sabotage occurs. The scramble to dominate the Arctic seabed is intensifying at a rapid pace. By leveraging heavily fortified polar outposts, adversaries are actively projecting power over strategic, newly opened maritime routes.
To Russia's military from their invasion of Ukraine, they're still expanding up near the Arctic Circle fast. Towards the east, 3 radomes have been built up here at Tixi between this October and last. Work here too over the last year on the runway in the Nagorskoye airfield far up near the Arctic Circle, and one of 5 new Resonance N radars.
The reactivation of historic Cold War infrastructure allows hostile fleets to launch frequent, short-range patrols directly over our critical subsea trunks. Modern conflict has evolved beyond traditional battlefields, with cyber infiltration and deep-sea espionage forming a highly coordinated hybrid threat. These hidden operations aim to quietly destabilize Western infrastructure from beneath the waves.
These hybrid activities include interference in foreign elections, espionage, disinformation to heighten social issues and tensions, and cyber infiltration of critical infrastructure. It has carried out targeted assassinations to silence opposition leaders and critics. And of course, it's attacked neighboring countries, annexed territory, and supported proxy forces to maintain control over its near abroad.
Neutralizing this multi-large threat requires a unified defense, utilizing the subsea grid to shield both military communications and civilian networks. Supporting our static undersea sensors is a fleet of advanced, nuclear-powered attack submarines. Operating in total silence beneath the ice caps, these vessels track the minute movements of adversarial deep-sea submersibles.
The ballistic missile submarine is slated to replace the aging Ohio-class subs currently in use by the United States military. Second only to aircraft carriers, nuclear-powered submarines are the most complex craft of the American arsenal. They're a major player in American global military strategy and how the United States plans to keep its edge against other major world players such as China.
By maintaining an invisible, constant presence near data lines, these elite crews provide a powerful deterrent against covert state-sponsored sabotage. The modern Subsea defense grid generates a massive, non-stop influx of acoustic and telemetry data. Processing this ocean-scale information requires highly advanced fiber optic processing nodes running continuously along the seafloor.
Largest and longest running ocean observation network in the world, and it's situated in waters around Vancouver Island. So we have the Venus network, which is situated in the Strait of Georgia and Sandwich Inlet, and we also have a much larger Neptune network extending from the west coast of the island off into the deep ocean. So this system basically consists of a suite of
Applying advanced processing to Subsea audio allows analysts to instantly separate normal marine life from the signature of a cable-cutting drone. Expanding our defensive grid into the brutal Arctic environment demands close collaboration between military planners and local northern infrastructure projects. Building out these rugged networks requires both tactical foresight and community integration.
Communities, and whether that is for telecommunications, power, and for transportation. So let's be strategic about it this time, and it can be a win-win-win if we do it right.
So can you give us a little bit more detail then on the security issues that are facing the Arctic right now?
Laying robust subsea fibers to remote northern communities simultaneously builds out the vital physical infrastructure needed for permanent maritime surveillance. The integration of new, highly capable regional allies has effectively closed critical surveillance gaps across the high north. This expanded alliance allows for the seamless monitoring of previously blind aquatic sectors.
NATO is drawing up new defense plans to address the threat posed by Russia. But to carry them out, allies have to increase their defense spending. That is Jens Stoltenberg's message in Brussels. He urged NATO countries to go beyond the target of 2% of GDP agreed 10 years ago.
I think more and more allies also agree to the fact that 2%.
A fully unified Subsea strategy ensures that every northern ally can share real-time sonar data, locking down vulnerable data corridors. Integrating highly advanced, deep-diving naval assets completely shifts the balance of power in regional maritime security. These specialized platforms are essential for defending exclusive economic zones and critical international all-cable routes.
Would have provided us not a nuclear-powered fleet of submarines. That's a game changer in terms of technology. The ability to acquire this from the United States puts Australia out of essentially middle power status here, Laura. We are the 7th nation, once we get this capability, to have a nuclear-powered fleet of submarines. So it is a massive leap forward, one that doesn't come without its own logistical challenges.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
These elite undersea platforms are absolutely vital for detecting and intercepting hostile submersibles before they can reach vulnerable network links. Historically, strategic adversaries went to extraordinary lengths to construct hidden military installations within the most remote polar territories. The ultimate goal was to operate fleets with total secrecy beneath the thick polar ice sheet.
Over the course of World War II, Base 211 became a massive complex, as large as a small city. Initially, it was designed as an offensive structure, where U-boats and missiles could be deployed. But as the tide of war turned against the Axis powers, it became clear that the base would be an ideal way to escape. In the final months of the war, huge amounts of equipment, supplies, and personnel were transported to Antarctica.
These historical efforts serve as a stark reminder that our adversaries have always viewed the icy polar depths as the perfect staging ground for covert operations. Today, highly specialized naval elite units are quietly deployed on classified polar operations to investigate unusual structural anomalies on the seabed. These high-stakes missions require operating at the absolute limit of deep-sea diving technology.
A medevac flight was forced over a no-fly zone near the South Pole. The crew saw a giant hole in the ice, as wide as a football field. When the crew returned to base, they were debriefed, not by the Navy, by men in suits. One of the crewmen said they had the typical DC look. In the 1990s, Navy flight crews reported silver discs zipping over mountain peaks at impossible speeds.
The operational details of these deep-sea missions remain heavily classified, as they frequently uncover critical structural vulnerabilities in foreign undersea networks. While commercial shipping accidents do cause routine cable faults, intelligence analysts must meticulously inspect every single outage. Determining the exact physical cause of a break requires sophisticated forensic analysis of the severed cable ends.
Their proliferation since the start of the Ukraine war has led many to suspect a covert campaign of hybrid warfare designed to test Europe's response. Last January, NATO launched its Baltic Sentry mission, using aircraft, frigates, and naval drones to monitor and protect undersea infrastructure.
How much responsibility for protecting underwater infrastructure should be assumed by governments and public institutions?
Distinguishing a random anchor drag from deliberate, state-sponsored sabotage is crucial for activating the appropriate military and diplomatic responses. If a major transatlantic or Arctic data artery is cleanly severed, network engineers face an incredibly tight timeline to reroute global traffic. A failure to act within hours risks triggering widespread digital service disruptions across entire continents.
Within about 7 days, our whole internet is supposed to go kaput. Okay? Now, to mitigate against this risk, both Russia initially and China, they've carried out multiple exercises, is what we have come to know, to see whether even if this gets cut, will the net stand up within, India, within their own respective countries.
This razor-thin operational window is precisely why our classified subsea defense grid must run flawlessly, providing instant warning of any undersea tampering. This razor-thin operational window is precisely why our classified subsea defense grid must run flawlessly, providing instant warning of any undersea tampering.